It's the bluest of the seas. It's a whisper through the trees. The serenade that drops you to your knees. It's the sparkle of the smile, the honesty in the eye, the bravest blue reaching for the winter sky. It's the racing of your heart. It's the stage behind the smart. It's the home inside the house where you were born. It's the things we can't explain, things received but never seen, everywhere and everything in between. It's taming the monsters under your bed, fighting the wolves that are in your head. It's the strange things you do when you are led. It's on the tip of your tongue, something's longing to be sung. It's relentless, but it's only just begun. And it's this calling up to you, using your heart to sing the truth, to put a little more love in the world. If your heart is torn in two, what you give out returns to you. So put a little more love in the world. Sing it after me. Put a little more, 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 put a little more love in the world. Do it again. Put a little more, 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 put a little more love in the world. And there's no place that it's not, and there's no time that it stops. There's a reason it takes your breath away, and the messages are clear. It's the reason why we're here. Put a little more, put a little more, put a little more love in the world. Sing it after me again. Put a little more, 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 put a little more love in the world. Let's hear it again. Put a little more, 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 put a little more love in the world. One more time. Put a little more, 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 put a little Thank you so much. Good job singing.
Thank you, Todd, and Kent, and Brian. Woo. Are you all ready to put a little more love into this world? One of the ways we do that is by learning how to use our own energy in constructive ways. That's what we've been learning about the last 7 weeks as we've been moving through this series based on the book Escaping the Chaos Within, A Recipe for Life Success. As we've been going through this, I realized that I've changed the title of our talks, though. They are based on that book, to Transmuting the Chaos Within, A Recipe for Life Success. Because we have been learning, have we not, that chaos is simply non-directed energy. We all understand that? And when we have it within us, we see it in the world around us. So if we want to get rid of the chaos or transmute it in the world around us, in order to build a world of peace and love, we have to first understand the chaos within ourselves and learn how to transmute that energy into creative energy. We look around our world today and we see the chaos, but we know that in order to heal it, it has to begin within. Just like we sing with the peace song, let there be peace on earth, and let it begin where? In me, yes. If we want order in the world, it has to begin in us. So how have we done this? Well, let's recap since we are coming to the end of this series. How do we reorganize this energy? How do we transmute it into useful, creative energy? Well, the first thing we have to do is align ourselves with our message to the universe. 6 weeks ago, we learned that every single human being, regardless of condition, situation, experience, or circumstance, came into this world with a gift to share with the world, and a gift to learn themselves, to enhance their own spiritual evolution. We are all here to evolve and become more than we have been. Some of you know one of my favorite movie lines ever is from The Lion King, when Mufasa, representing spirit or God, looks down at Simba and says, "Simba, you are more than you have become." That is true for every single one of us, no matter where we are on our spiritual journey. There is yet more that we are evolving to become. So we do that by aligning with our message to the universe, rediscovering what our gift is. We all knew it when we were born, when we were little children, and we forget it too often. So we're relearning that. The next step is learning to trust our inner self, learning to discern what our root causes of the recurring problems we have are. Anybody ever have a problem that crops up over and over again? Or am I the only one? Well, when you see that happening, you have to look and say, okay, this is something in here I have to work on. And once we can realize that, once we can face that, then we can stop that cycle. And to do that, we learn to trust our heart, our Christ spirit, we call it. We learn to trust that voice of guidance within that may direct us to go to another expert or go deeper into meditation or read a book or who knows what we have to do. Maybe just stop a bad habit. But we get in touch with our own true nature. Third step, let our light shine. For crying out loud, we are created to shine. Every great teacher the world has ever known has said, you are the light of the world. You and you and you and you and you and you. And everybody else. And all of you out there on Facebook. We are all meant to shine. That's why Jesus said, do not hide your light under a bushel. Let it shine. Be who you are. Share your gift without inhibition. The next step, living with intention. Consciously being in the moment. Understanding how we have handled our challenges in the past by recognizing, oh, here it is. I recognize this challenge. But this time, I am going to do something different. There's a parable that I heard one time with our youth, and it's a story about somebody who's walking down a street, and they fall into a hole. And they yell and scream for help. It's not their fault. They didn't see the hole, but they fell into it. And sure enough, somebody comes by and helps them out. Time go by, and later on they're walking down the same street, and they fall into the same hole. They knew it was there, but they fell into it anyway. And they yell and scream for help, and somebody pulls them out. A while later, they're walking down the same street. There's the same hole. They stop, and they see it, and then they fall in. Why? Because it's habit now. It's comfortable. At least the landing's not so much, and somebody comes along and pulls them out. And then one day they're walking down the same street and they come to the same hole and they say, oh, there's that hole. It has been comfortable every time I've fallen in. I know that hole. I've been down there before. And I know somebody will pull me out, but this time I'm going to step around it. But there's one more chapter. There's an epilogue. One day somebody's walking down the street and they remember, there's a hole there. I'm going to go a different direction. That's what it's all about. That's how we learn to recognize the patterns that we have lived over and over again. And we have the intention to set a new course and live a different way. And then the next realization we have in the process is realizing we're never older than 7. Now, yes, I don't know about you. This vessel that I am occupying at the moment, called Gordon, has been on this earth for a little over 65 years. But that's not how old I am. How old am I? I am timeless, which means I never age. Not in truth, neither do you. Yes, this vessel might age, but we do not. We are eternal beings of light. And when we get into that energy and we realize that actually this meat body that we occupy for this experience we call life regenerates itself every 7 years, we begin to be filled with a new energy, an ever youthful energy that we can give out to the world, because as we give our energy out, what happens? We get more back. It's like an electrical circuit. We have to be in that flow. You interrupt an electrical circuit, what happens? The lights go out. But as long as we're flowing, the circuit is complete. And it does not matter how long you have occupied this vessel. In your soul body, you are timeless and ever youthful. The next step we have to learn is maintaining balance. Maintaining balance, knowing what we need in our lives. And more importantly, I think, because we live in a culture where we're all about, oh yes, got to say yes to everything. More important is recognizing what we do not need in our lives. I shared with you last week that I've been to many motivational talks and things like that where people have said, say yes to life, say yes to everything. And I have come to realize that that is not healthy. Sometimes it is good to say no. That is not mine to do. That is not mine to accept. That is not mine to invite into my life. And I think, as I shared last week, one of the challenges we have with that is that, especially in New Thought, I found, we're positive people. Life is always good. It's always fluffy bunnies and all of that. And so we don't want to ever affirm that we don't want something in our lives. And yes, affirming negativity is not helpful, but not to acknowledge it at all causes a chaotic energy, because it's there for a reason. And we can look at it and say, to this thing, this experience, this whatever it may be, I say no. I do not accept that into my life. Part of that requires that we stop judging things as good or bad. Rather, let's discern what is useful and what is not useful. We know that all of creation is simply manifest energy. That's all it is. And energy is neither good nor bad. It just goes in whatever direction it is guided into. So we stop labeling it and we say, this energetic manifestation is not beneficial, and I do not accept it. Now that leaves the door open for the ability to shift that energy, to change it to something different. This week, the final step, keeping score in our favor. That's the final tool we will use to transmute chaos into order. How many of us keep score in life? All of us. Whether you consciously realize it or not, up here, we are keeping score. Hey, always counting our successes and counting our losses. And sadly, in our world today, we tend to focus more on our losses than on our successes. We think, the economy did this to me. Oh, that neighbor did that to me. Oh, I made this horrible mistake. I don't know what I was thinking. When we get into that energy, that mindset, it drains us of our motivation. It literally sucks that right out of us. Let me ask you a question. How many of you are quick to, you don't have to answer out loud if you don't want, but how many of you are quick to notice your successes? How many of you are quick to notice your failures? Do you celebrate your wins or cry over your losses? Think about when you were a child. You probably played many games with your siblings and friends. Do you remember how excited you got when you won? Or was I the only one? I used to love to win games. It was one of my favorite times. And even as an adult, there's an excitement we feel when we win. Or when somebody or something we identify with wins. How many of you are football fans? Let me tell you, I'm not into football. But when I do watch a football game, I'm really watching the other people in the room. I had a family member some years ago, she's still around, very, very kind of petite, quiet lady. You know who I'm talking about. She's a Dallas Cowboys fan. And oh my gosh, she would wear her cowboy sweats, and she had her cowboy cush thing you put your can in, pillow that she would throw at the TV when they messed up. And she would jump and yell and scream when they scored. Why? Because we're wired for that. We really are. And we get to a point where we can feel it as when we are part of a bigger whole. When we have successes here at Unity, oh my gosh, doesn't it feel good? Didn't it feel good how our gala turned out? Yeah. Yes. But why do we have to win something to feel good about ourselves? Every one of us has dozens of positive experiences every day. And every one of us does many, many things well. And yet, we tend to recall and dwell on those things that aren't so good, the failures we have, the things we don't do well. If you've ever worked in retail, that's a tough job, let me tell you. If you've ever worked in retail or been a waiter or a waitress in a restaurant, you go home at night. Do you talk about the customer that was just really hard, difficult? I was going to say something else. Really difficult. Or do you remember the hundreds that you waited on that were pleasant? When you drive down the road, do you remember the one person that flips you off or cuts out in front of you? Or do you think about the thousands upon thousands of cars you pass with nothing happening? Do you recall the best times in your life or the worst times in your life? That's how we keep score, whether we realize it or not. And unfortunately, in a world where we are immersed in messages of negativity. We live in a world of mass media, of social media that constantly bombards us with the worst things in our world. When I was writing this yesterday, I stopped right there and I thought, I'm going to look on my phone and see just what the headlines are right now. So I went to my news feed. This is what came up. Train derailment in Montana. Massive heat wave in the south. Rebellion in Moscow. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Lorraine Boebert. Hunter Biden, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Putin, Stephen King's mad about something. There's bad news from Disneyland. Ride got jilted and some building collapsed. No wonder we keep negative score. Well, I thought, okay, there's got to be some good news here somewhere. So I start scrolling through some more, and eventually I find one. The Star Trek universe is bringing back one of the original uniforms. Now, I'm a Trekkie. That caught my attention. But that was like the only good news in my feed. It's like, oh my gosh, no wonder. No wonder we're programmed to track the negative things in our lives. I thought, well, I'll go to my Facebook page. Everything's wonderful in Facebook land. Actually, everybody on my Facebook page pretty much is a Unity person, so it kind of is on mine. But I had to get off of it and look at some of the other things, some of the other pages. And I noticed most of them were people complaining about their neighbors, people complaining about other people complaining about dogs, cats, rats, snakes, rakes, and so on ad nauseum. No wonder we don't know how to keep score in our favor. No wonder we focus on the negative. Here's an important truth. Write this down. You cannot judge the world negatively without judging yourself negatively. It is not possible. And those judgments or scores adversely affect each one of us. Judgment makes us self-critical. The more you judge others, the more you judge yourself. And by constantly seeing the bad in others, we train ourselves to find only the bad. What does this lead to? It leads to an increase in our stress levels. And stress can weaken the immune system and cause fatigue, depression, high blood pressure, stroke. Now, I'm going to stop there and say that one of the things we are learning, a certain amount of stress in our lives is actually healthy. If it's stress caused by us striving to reach a goal, stress caused by us evolving and growing. But if it's stress caused by taking in all this negative energy and all these negative messages, it is not healthy. It allows us, when we do that, to find fault with everything. And then it takes great effort to find the good in others and in ourselves. Seth Gillian, who's an author of a wonderful little book called The Mindful Year, wrote this. Negative scorekeeping makes people shy away. When people know you're judgmental, they automatically step back. They become wary of you and think twice before sharing anything meaningful. If you want to have relationships that are not superficial, you need to learn to accept people as they are. Distancing people will lead you to missing out on making a connection with friends and families and increase your risk of death anywhere from 50 to 90%. Now I always kind of chuckle over that when they, give the advertisements and they say side effect may be death, may increase your chance of death. Come on, guys, really? It's 100% guarantee. But getting back to more serious topics, it stunts personal development. Yes, it increases the chance of death, but spiritual deaths, which we never really die, but spiritual growth death, it stops us. When you point your finger at someone, he goes on, you are actually pointing at yourself. And many people end up turning to criticism of others instead of focusing on how they can improve. Think about what you're seeing in the world today. It's not their fault. It's because we have been programmed to keep score negatively instead of in our favor. I think about what Paul wrote to the church in Rome. You, therefore, have no excuse. You pass judgment on someone else or something or yourself. For at whatever point you judge another, you are condemning yourself because you pass judgment to do the same thing. He was saying what you see out there in the world around you is what you are putting into yourself. Paul went on to say, now we know that God's judgment against those who do such things is based on truth. And I'm going to explain this a little bit because it was kind of mistranslated. So when you, a mere human being, pass judgment on others, and yet do the same things, do you think you will escape God's judgment? Now, the word that was translated as judgment, God's judgment, would more correctly be translated as energy. What energy are you giving out? What energy are you looking at the world with? Are you looking for the low frequency energy, or are you looking for the high frequency energy that Jesus and all the other great teachers called the light? Let me tell you something. I do have other news feeds that I look at that tell me the good stuff that's going on around in the world. And there's a lot of good happening in our world today. But you don't read about it or hear about it on social media or in the news. There's marvelous people working together to improve the economy, to improve the world's ecology, to heal climate change, to heal race relationships, to become more inclusive in their communities. There are communities in places like Israel and the Middle East where supposedly everybody's fighting each other. There are communities where Palestinians and Jews and Muslims and Christians all live together, go to school together, play together. I've shared a story about something we witnessed in Washington, D.C. some years ago, 2019, where we had taken a boat ride and we came back, got off at the dock. There was a beach there, and there was I think it was the women's basketball national championships, and they had a massive screen with it playing, and so there were a huge crowd of people. But I looked out over that beach, and I saw people of all colors kicking balls around and playing. Women in the word went out of my head. Hajib. Yes, kicking balls with kids of all races and all colors and all religions, and music playing, and they cheered when the women scored. That's happening far more often than we realize. So what are we going to connect our energy to? Are we going to focus, like Paul said, on the negative? Are we going to just look for the bad? Or are we going to look for the good? Because when we look for the good, we begin to see it in ourselves. And then we begin to keep score in a new way. We go, oh, wow, I'm not as bad as I thought I was. I actually have some good in me. That's how we begin to grow. So that phrase, God's judgment, was a way of saying the impact this will have on you. You will gradually lose the ability to see the good if you focus on the negative. And your scorecard will begin to move into the deficit column. Wayne Dyer wrote, "We are less and less like human beings and becoming more like human doings." That's what happens when we get caught up in the world outside of us. We become so focused on accomplishing and creating a life where we are never able to accomplish enough, that we beat ourselves up for what we did not do rather than honor ourselves for what we do. Let's try an experiment. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. And say, I am so disappointed in myself. I know nobody's going to do it because you're Unity people. But just think about how would it feel if you did that. You can feel how your energy just drops. I'm not going to leave you there, don't worry. Now, close your eyes and say, I am thrilled with what I accomplished today. Oh, you all do that one. But you didn't sound real convincing. I am thrilled with what I accomplished today. All right. Feel the difference in the energy? Which statement puts a smile on your face? None of you smiled when I did the first one. So how do we shift our focus? How do we change that immersed programming we have gotten? The first step is recognize that you are a human being, not merely a human doing. Every great philosopher has said something along those lines. Lao Tzu, Chinese philosopher, wrote, "The way to do is to be." And then we have the more materialistic, capitalistic Western mindset. Dale Carnegie said, "The way to be is to do." But the wisest person was Frank Sinatra, who said, "Doobie, doobie, doo." It's all about coming into balance. being balanced between the doing and the being, knowing when it's time to sit and when it's time to do. I'm reminded of a meditation class I went to once where somebody had said, don't just sit there, do something. And the meditation instructor said, no, don't just do something, sit there. Sometimes we need to take that time to sit, become still, go within, and pull out our scorecard and look at all that we have accomplished, all that we have overcome, all that we have given forth that is good. And don't put the energy on the other side. Be conscious of where you focus your attention. The input from the world around you does impact your outlook. So you have to be responsible for what you are allowing to impact you from the world around you. Choose a view that is honoring. Honoring of yourself and honoring of others and honoring of life. Count your blessings. We have a whole song we sing about count your blessings sometimes. Be aware of what you accomplish and be aware of how busy you make your life. You know, sometimes we get so busy, we forget to be thankful for what we have. One of the things that if you need to, this is a good technique that works, keep a gratitude journal. Jot down a few things you're grateful for, even if they have not occurred yet. You know, we bought a kind of a small house because that was all we could find in 2021 when we moved here. And so we're bumping into each other all the time, and we've actually turned that into fun. But it's not the house we want, but we are in the consciousness where we'll say, I am so grateful for this huge kitchen, you know, when we're like this, because it's getting us into that energy. It's getting us into that place. So we look for the lessons and the messages on our path. We consider everything that comes our way a blessing. It may be a blessing in disguise. We may have to look for it, but there's a blessing there. So I'm going to share with you an affirmation that you can use to shift this energy in your own lives. Now, it's kind of a long one. You don't have to write it down or memorize it. In about a little less than an hour, it will be up on our Facebook page, both written and vocal. So just relax into this moment. Close your eyes if you're comfortable doing that, and let this affirmation resonate within you. I am a self-expression of the infinite. I have a mind that can create new, creative, adventurous thoughts. I have a heart that can feel the love of God and share it with my world. I have a tongue that can speak strong, powerful, creative words of truth. I have a body that is the temple of a living God and that responds to constructive thinking, creative feeling, and words of truth. I live in a vibrant universe that responds to me, my attitudes, and my actions. Powerful affirmation. And again, go to our Facebook page after 12 o'clock and it'll be on there. So to wrap up, what have we learned? We have learned that we are the co-creator of our world, each one of us individually, and that the material we create with is energy. Every scientist, every teacher has said, everything is energy. And we have the ability to direct the flow of that energy into creative, life-filled, and life-giving experiences, or not. That's the true meaning of the expression of this phrase, you are the light of the world. That's what Jesus was talking about. You are the energy of the world. You are one with all of creation, one as all of creation, and one as co-creator. So take that chaos that you see in the world around you. When you see it in yourself, take it, embrace it, direct it. For it is energy that is available for you to use, and you can choose today to use it wisely. Namaste.
Running from the past, tripping on the now. What is lost can be found, it's obvious. And like a rubber ball, we come bouncing back. We all got a second act inside of us. I believe that we're just one dream away from who we're meant to be. And we're standing at the edge of something crazy big, and days are yet unknown. This moment is ours to own. And we're standing on the edge of great.
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 Great.
On the edge of great.
We're standing on the edge of
Great.
We all make mistakes, but they're just stepping stones to take us where we want to go. It's never straight, no. Sometimes we gotta lean on someone else to get a little help until we find our way. I believe that we're just one dream away from who we're meant to be. And we're standing on the edge of something big, something crazy. Our best is yet unknown. That's all it's ours to own. And we're standing on the edge of great.
On the edge of great.
Great.
Edge of great.
Great.
Edge of great.
We're standing on the edge of shout, shout. Come on and let it out, out. You gotta hide it. Let your colors blind their eyes. Be who you are, no compromise. And shout, shout. Come on and let it out, out. What doesn't kill you, it makes you feel alive. I believe that we're just one dream away from who we're meant to be. And we're standing on the edge of something big, something crazy. Our best days are yet unknown. This moment is ours to own. And we're standing on the edge of great. On the edge of great. On the edge of great. We're standing on the edge of great. On the edge of great. On the edge of great. We're standing on the edge of running from the past, tripping on the now. What is lost can be found, it's obvious.
Thank you, Brad.